Good morning, my friends. We are here, UFC Austin, 12 fights. Arman Tsarukyan taking on Benny Dariush in a lightweight battle. We saw some shenanigans leading up to this fight. Arman Tsarukyan getting into it in the hotel lobby with Bobby Green, etc. 8 out of 12 of these matchups are currently favored to end inside the distance. We saw some troubles on the scales. We saw a lot of heated face-offs. We saw handshakes being offered, being denied. Let's talk these 12 fights. Let's break this fight card down. By the way, if you wouldn't mind subscribing to the channel as well as liking the video, that'll be a big help here. We are third-party tracked winners now. Been at this for quite some time and taking it one fight at a time. That is the motto here, a measured approach every time out. Let's get into it. Let's start at the first fight of the night where we have Veronica Hardy, who's taking on Jamie Lynn Horth at 125 pounds. Jamie Lynn Horth seems to have a massive size advantage here. And you saw Veronica Hardy giving a quirky smile in the lead up to this fight, answering questions, being how can we put this? It's almost like she knows something that we don't know here. Now, she has Hardy in her corner here, a UFC veteran who has been pulling the strings, putting Hardy in a positive situation. But look no further than the Bea Malecki fight, where you saw Veronica Hardy struggle against a fighter who is much larger than her. Jamie Lynn Horth, solid gas tank, undefeated Canadian fighter, 6-0 granted. It's not like she's fought the who's who, had some success in LFA, came over here, and I'm going to be leaning with the favorite, Jamie Lynn Horth. She's going to be the pick here, but I understand Hardy, if she's able to put herself in a dominant position here. It may be trouble, though. It may be trouble against someone who has the stick-to-itiveness of Jamie Lynn Horth, somebody who's not going to give up on herself. And we've seen Veronica Hardy give up on herself a few separate times inside of the octagon. I'm going to be picking Jamie Lynn Horth in that first matchup. Second fight of the night, where we have Wellington Turman taking on Jared Gooden. Wellington Turman coming in as a minus 192 betting favorite. And a lot of folks out there are having trouble getting to that number because we've seen Wellington Turman get blown out of the water in the past. Andrew Sanchez took him out of there. There have been other fighters who've done some serious damage to Wellington Turman. Turman, the much more highly skilled fighter here, now under the tutelage of Alex Pereira and Glover Teixeira. And he looked like a different fighter on the scale yesterday. He looked much more lean. And he's taking on Jared Gooden, who struggled to make weight in the past at 170 pounds. Jared Gooden, I posted the brutal knockout loss in 2019 to Bruno Oliveira. That was tough to watch. Jared Gooden is going to throw hammers in there, but I have problems with the striking defense of Jared Gooden. He also seems to end up on autopilot at times while he's fighting. He will be able to push through exhaustion, but he does not move his head off the center line, and that's something to look out for here. So Turman's got the grappling edge. Turman has some chin issues too. So I'm not going to go all in here, but I'm going to be picking Wellington Turman, and I believe that he has multiple paths to victory, both on the mat, and it wouldn't surprise me to see him get the better of Jared Gooden the longer this fight goes on the feet as well. So give me Wellington Turman there. By the way, I need to mention that we are in Texas for this card. So the judging in Austin, and we've seen it in San Antonio and Houston, etc., that is a cause for concern here. So when you're targeting fights, I advise trying to find matchups where the fighter you're backing has the potential to finish the fight as well. So not necessarily just get the better of their opponent for 15 minutes, but also a path to victory inside the distance. That will alleviate some of the stress when it comes to hitting the scorecards and you hear this obscene scorecard that's like, where did that come from? How did that even happen? So if somebody gets knocked out or submitted, that's one way of avoiding the scorecards. Now, let's talk a fight that is likely to end inside the distance here. We've got Rodolfo Bellato taking on Ihor Poteria. Poteria somehow, some way has managed to rack up 20 professional wins, and he's made it into the UFC, but we've seen Negu Mariano and others take Ihor Poteria out of there, and he comes out hot early, has a few flashes of brilliance, and then falls off of a cliff. Now, beating the carcass of Mauricio Shogun Hua doesn't necessarily impress me much. Rodolfo Vieira, you watch him fight, and this is a fighter who you talk about having some or drawing the bad straw here in a matchup. He ended up taking on Vitor Petrino 2 separate times. Vitor Petrino, who I believe is one of the bright young stars at 205 pounds. But Bellato's no slouch, as they say. He's a fighter who's going to come out guns blazing. He does leave his chin on a platter, but he's going to go for it. He's tough. He's got multiple paths to victory here. I'm going to be picking Rodolfo Bellato, and I'm hesitant. Look at the number. The inside the distance number on Bellato right now is -250. I think there are some better ways of attacking this fight. If you look at the under 2.5, even the under 1.5, I believe that guns are going to be blazing and chins are going to be exposed and somebody's going to get dropped here. And I think that Poteria is going to be the one getting dropped. So look for Rodolfo Bellato by TKO. Let's take a look at the comments section here. We've got a few comments here. JP, good morning. The coffee's flowing. Yes, the coffee's flowing over here. Big Pretty is sound asleep. She's snoring, but she's going to be getting up shortly. Let's see. We've got Shady's up and on his way to the job site. Let's go. Young Maestro, you're back in action here. Great to see you this morning. So we've got a number of folks in the chat here. Grateful for you. If you wouldn't mind liking the video and subscribing to the channel, that's a big help as we continue to grow here. Remember, the worst night of my betting year in 2023 has been -2.95 units. And that is in a landscape where you see folks sometimes lose 10, 15, 20 units, 20 plus units, 20% of their bankroll on one fight card. That's a recipe for disaster. Try to avoid situations like that. Risk management, mitigating risk is very important. You want to maximize your wins while minimizing your losses. So take that into consideration here. Now, let's talk Drakkar Klose taking on Joe Solecki. Joe Solecki is a slight underdog here. And Joe Solecki, I like what he brings to the table as far as his back-taking ability, his jiu-jitsu, his intelligence, but his body has let him down time and time again inside of the octagon. The longer the fight goes, the Jared Gordon fight, that's something that really, it was an eye-opener for me. He hit a wall in that fight. He hits a wall in a lot of fights here. And Drakkar Klose is someone who we saw the Jeremy Stevens issue where he was shoved and ended up pulling out of that fight. He's coming off of, I believe, an ACL injury here. He's also Drakkar Klose in his mid to late 30s, 35 or so. So this is a fighter, Drakkar Klose, who granted has better cardio, can pack a punch, is the more diverse fighter, more well-rounded fighter. This is a very dangerous fight for both of these fighters. Solecki, I think that he could come out here, take this fight to the mat, get up early, and then the wheels fall off. But I could also see Solecki coming in, locking a submission up after he takes the back of Drakkar Klose. I know Klose has never been submitted, but Solecki is a prime jiu-jitsu practitioner. He's excellent on the mat, and he'll wait. He'll take his time, as we saw against Deaton and others. But Deaton, look at the level of competition here. Drakkar Klose was giving Benny Dariush problems on the feet. And when exhaustion sets in, who's going to find the target? I don't trust Selecki on the feet when he's exhausted. I do trust Drakkar Klose. I'm going to be picking Drakkar Klose to edge this one out and take advantage of Joe Selecki running out of gas. But I don't have a play on this fight. I think that there's a path for Joe Selecki to win this fight. And I see Drakkar Klose being a bit of a flake and dropping the ball in certain situations. Good morning, Mike. Great to have you here. Thank you for choosing to lock in with us this morning. By the way, 8 out of 12 of the matchups here are currently favored to end inside the distance. And we have a fight here that should end inside the distance. Zachary Reese taking on Cody Brundage. Cody Brundage coming off of the win over Jacob Malkoun. And what can you say about Cody Brundage in this spot? He has shown a propensity to quit. I posed the question, how do you sum up Cody Brundage's career in one word? Wow. And I was met by a barrage of responses, some vulgarity, etc. And Cody Brundage, he's received a lot of hate online. I do see a talented fighter in Cody Brundage. The problem is he tends to not only give up on himself, but also when adversity sets in, he will just wilt. He will fold like a cheap lawn chair. We've seen that happen a number of times. Zachary Reese, he's somebody who has yet to meet serious adversity inside of the octagon. Undefeated record, hasn't fought great competition, and he is a finisher by trade. So I don't trust Reese if he faces adversity, and I don't trust Brundage if he faces adversity. Both of these fighters could potentially look for the door. I think that Reese, though, should win this fight and should win this fight inside the distance. I saw a massive size difference on the scale as well. That's something that stood out to me. And Zachary Reese is fighting in Texas as well. I'm going to be picking Reese. I think that we've seen Brundage wilt and check out, and I think that's going to happen here again. Granted, last time out, he wilted and checked out and walked away with a victory versus Malkoun. So, oh my gosh, can you imagine what it feels like to be Jacob Malkoun right now with that taste in his mouth coming back after that loss? Oh my gosh. So give me Reese in that matchup. Now, we've got Miesha Tate taking on Julia Avila. Both of these ladies, elder stateswomen in their respective divisions. Julia Avila is coming off of a long layoff with injuries, etc. But what she does bring to the table is some unpredictable striking. She is a bit of a wild woman out there. She will go for it. She has the potential to gas herself out. But the thing about Miesha Tate is she's so predictable. She is going to try to close distance, try to change levels, put you against the cage, take you to the ground, and then establish top position and look to grapple her way to victory. On the feet, she's robotic. Her striking defense is, she tries, I'll say that, but I was at her fight against Lauren Murphy. I picked Lauren Murphy to win that fight. And what you have here, I don't trust Miesha Tate. I don't trust Julia Avila. I think that this is best to be avoided from a betting perspective. But I think that Avila has more in the tank here, and she has a lot to prove. Miesha Tate's been champion. She's proved herself many, many times before. You have to wonder why she's continuing to fight. Her career could have and should have ended a long time ago, but here she is. I don't think she's necessarily chasing a paycheck. I think the competitive spirit runs deep. But I'll be picking Julia Avila in this matchup. I think that not only is Avila unpredictable, but she has more finishing potential here. And the problem with Avila is her grappling, though, on the mat. I think that if she's on the bottom, Tate could potentially accrue a significant amount of top position. But give me Julia Avila in that matchup. Now, let's talk fighters who've let us down in the past. Let's talk Punahele Sorano. Sorano, who last time out against Kopylov wilted under the bright lights in the second round. Now, that was a matchup where Dan Ige also fought on that card. And I think it was Ige was fighting Damon Jackson there. Now, Sorano came out, dropped the ball, ran out of gas. It's interesting. He was fighting in the apex too, where Extreme Couture is right there. He should have, and I don't know what necessarily is going on behind the scenes, but I do see a very talented fighter in Punahele Soriano. The gas tank is an issue. I was at his fight against Dalcha Lungiambula, and we saw the power is there. The killer instinct is there. And he's got some solid boxing, but to get beaten to a pulp in the body and to run out of gas against Kopylov, that was a big concern of mine. Now he's taking on Dustin Stolfus, who has been blown out of the water a number of times by fighters who are much more powerful, fighters who bring some explosiveness to the table. I was at his fight against Dwight Grant. I saw Dwight Grant, I believe, changed weight divisions there, and Stolfus gave a great interview. He also, Stolfus was in there against Rodolfo Vieira and had some moments in that fight, but we've seen him check out of fights as well. So this is an interesting matchup, but I do trust Soriano a little bit more in this spot. I think that he has the ability to finish here as well. And you look at the Soriano inside the distance line, I've seen it hovering around minus 125 or so. I understand why folks are backing away and staying away from this fight, but I think that Soriano walks away victorious, and I'd much rather play Soriano at when he was at minus 250 instead of the minus 345 that he's currently sitting at. Now, Stolfus, if he's able to drag this fight out, then you could potentially have a situation where Soriano starts to gas out. But I think that the power coming back at Stolfus is going to be a problem for here. Now Shady says this is a UFC layup, and I see a pineapple there, and I believe that he's leaning towards the Soriano side as well. Now let's talk Clay Guida taking on Joaquim Silva. Joaquim Silva, this guy looks completely shredded every time he steps on the scale. I have no idea how he's passed the USADA tests time and time again. I remember his matchup against Jared Gordon, where that was one of the fights where I was on Gordon rather heavily, and I added as the line closed, and you saw Jared Gordon was able to get off on Joaquim Silva throughout that fight, and then the tide turned. And Joaquim Silva has jiu-jitsu. He has a killer instinct. And I see a fight here that I believe this fight's only not expected to go to a decision at minus 170. And you have a 41-year-old Clay Guida who's been tough as nails. Clay Guida, the king of purposeless movement. That's what I refer to Clay Guida as. He's a legend of the game, but he draws a lot of, or he utilizes a lot of feints. He has covered the most square footage in UFC history inside of the octagon. Somebody posed Frankie Edgar as being the person who's closed or navigated the most terrain inside of the octagon. I think that Guida and Frankie are probably neck and neck. But Guida, we've seen the wheels are starting to fall off here. I know he took a loss, I believe, against Rafa Garcia recently, and I don't trust Clay Guida. The other thing is Joaquim Silva is not he's not a world beater, and we've seen him chin checked before by lesser opponents, but can Clay Guida do that? I know Clay Guida outstruck Michael Johnson. That was a shock to me. In this spot, I'm going to be picking Joaquim Silva. He's only 34 years old. The fight against Arman Tsarukyan, fighting now out of American Top Team, showed that there are some wrinkles to his game that we have yet to see at this stage in his career. I think that Silva has much more potential here when you're looking at a Guida who this potentially could have retirement implications here. I think that there's a high likelihood that Clay Guida leaves his gloves inside of the octagon. I'm going to be picking Joaquim Silva in that matchup. We've got additional comments here. Let's see what we got here. 41 at lightweight. Could Clay have anything left in the tank? Surely not. Yeah, I agree with you there. He will have the crowd on his side. That's about it, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Now, let's talk. This is a matchup. This is the people's main event here. Sean Brady taking on Kelvin Gastelum. What happened? The first battle was the scale. We saw Kelvin Gastelum make 170 pounds, championship weight, not even 171, made 170 pounds. And now he could run into issues if Sean Brady's able to have a grappling heavy approach and establish top position and take Kelvin Gastelum down. Kelvin Gastelum, we know, has fought the who's who, has been around the block. He's fought at 185 pounds and fought the likes of Jacare Souza, Israel Adesanya, Michael Bisping, etc., and has performed well up at 185 pounds. But he's also taken losses to Jack Hermanson and others. And the ground game, if you are gonna beat Kelvin Gastelum, you likely have to do it quickly. And I don't believe in Sean Brady's gas tank. I also don't believe in Sean Brady's striking defense. Both he and Pat Sabatini fight out of the same camp. They have some of the worst striking defense I've ever seen in the UFC. And they're on the same team. It's incredible. I don't know what's going on there, but Sean Brady's going to have to utilize a grappling heavy approach if he wants to win this fight. And Kelvin Gastelum, we know, lightning quick 1-2s. He's got that piston-like left hand. And I'm interested. He also fights out of a great camp at Fight Ready. So I'm interested to see how this fight unfolds. I think that the value was on Kelvin Gastelum at dog odds. And Brady, man, you watch the fight against Bilal Muhammad and the way he checked out. Well, his body gave up on him in that fight. You saw he got hit with 1 or 2 strikes and then froze up. And the Michael Chiesa matchup, watch the last minute of the Michael Chiesa fight. If Michael Chiesa is dominating you on the feet and having you retreat and turtle up, that is major red flags for me. So I'm not picking or backing Sean Brady in this matchup. I'm picking Kelvin Gastelum here. And I understand Brady's very talented on the mat, but as far as I'm concerned, he's a one-trick pony. Let's see. Gastelum laying off the tortillas. I'm a big fan of Kelvin. My one of my sons has met him, and I've been able to talk with him before. Solid guy who is great for the fight game. Brady is fragile, but I don't. As far as the actual breakdown and pick of the fight, I'm rolling with Kelvin Gastelum here. 62% takedown defense. Yeah, he's fighting someone who's 15 pounds less than him. I know this isn't Robert Whittaker that he's facing here. Sean Brady does not pose the same skill set and threat in that matchup. Now let's continue this journey. Let's talk Rob Font taking on Davison Figueiredo. This was a matchup where initially I was waiting to make a play on Rob Font, and I still believe that he is more likely to win this fight than Davison Figueiredo. But the move back to Fight Ready for Davison Figueiredo is something that I have some respect for that. I think that to get out of your comfort zone, I know he did his last camp, I believe, in Brazil, and now he's back at Fight Ready. Looks phenomenal. Davison Figueiredo, he's the younger fighter here. Rob Font has taken a lot of damage. And Figueiredo, it's interesting when you're capping fights and when you're watching footage. It's not often you see somebody face the same fighter 4 times in a row, and Brandon Moreno was that opponent. So this is a fresh opponent, Rob Font. The problem here, this is a live betting opportunity for you folks. I advise waiting this out midway to the end of round 1. If Figueiredo and Rob Font are still going at it. I suspect that Rob Font there'll be a turning point where he'll start using that jab, that crisp, long jab that has made him who he is. And he should be able to find the target here, especially the second. And if this gets into the third round, I think that Font has the ability to run away with this one. But also Figueiredo, one of the most explosive fighters in the sport. And he is going to go for it right out of the gates. He's going to have to close distance or else he's going to get picked apart at range. That's pretty clear. The New England cartel know what they're doing. They're intelligent. But this is a very closely lined fight. I think that at weigh-ins, I was concerned for Rob Font. He didn't look great, and Figueiredo looked amazing at weigh-ins. But can that gas tank hold up? And it's only a 3-round fight. That's the thing, too. And we've seen the Pantoja fight. Pantoja started to come back the later that fight went with Davison Figueiredo. So I don't necessarily trust Figueiredo in this spot, coming off of all of these title defenses and now moving up a weight class. I'm going to be picking Rob Font here. Now, let's talk. We've got 2 more fights left to discuss. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Appreciate you. Can Font win by jabbing Figgy's face off? Yes, that is a path. Now, that's true. The chin could go. Let's talk Jalen Turner and Bobby Green. Interesting. Bobby Green, you'd think at this stage in his career, he would avoid shenanigans in the hotel lobby a couple of nights before the fight. Why are he and Arman Tsarukyan getting into it here? They're professional athletes. It just boggles my mind. They should be focusing on their weight cuts, and you have Bobby Green here getting into it. And Jalen Turner, he made weight somehow. It seemed to be a miraculous situation that he made 156 pounds. He was 157 at one point, stumbled off the scale. Very, I'll say this. I have trepidation backing Jalen Turner here. And I initially was planning on making a significant play on him. Bobby Green, he's going to have to find his way inside the pocket, and that's where he makes his bread and butter, right? Jalen Turner's been brutally knocked out numerous times. Look at the Vicente Luque matchup. This is, I believe, somebody who's lost 7 times and has numerous brutal knockout losses. And the feints of Bobby Green may be on display. The problem here for Bobby Green is he cannot sit at range and get kicked apart, get picked apart, and that's a possibility. But Turner, I think that he's working on a limited gas tank here, taking this fight on short notice. Bobby Green, full gas tank, has preparation for a full fight camp. So I'm going to be picking Jalen Turner, but I think that Bobby Green is very, very live here. Let's pause and have a drink of the coffee here. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And I see the numbers are rising. People are pouring into this stream, and pour yourself a nice large cup of coffee while you're at it. Appreciate you. So Jalen Turner here, I am concerned about his gas tank. I'm concerned about his chin. But if he's able to get his kicks going, or if he's able to lock up a submission, the problem is the submission may be tough to get when he's unable to land takedowns on Bobby Green, who has solid takedown defense. You're right. Let's see. Turner is so hard to trust, even with all the physical advantages. You look at the weigh-ins, and Turner has had a massive height advantage, and looks like he has a big time reach advantage as well. But he said he felt forced to take this fight, and you saw the there was some quit in him when he was fighting Dan Hooker, and Hooker has his arm broke. He's tough. He's digging deeper. He's coming back, and Turner was not expecting Dan Hooker to still be there in front of him during the fight, late, deep in the fight, and Hooker came out the other side victorious. So if Turner starts to, he's a bit of a front runner. I don't necessarily trust him deep in fights. I know he had a good performance against Mateusz Gamrot, but Bobby Green, though, let's be real, he's getting up there, 38 or so, 37, 38 years of age. I'm going to be picking Jalen Turner. Let's talk the main event of the evening, my brothers, and then we'll get rolling here. But let's talk main event of the evening. Benny Dariush, Arman Tsarukyan. Now, the odds are interesting here because you had Dariush opened as a minus 120 betting favorite, and this line flipped. And Dariush looks great on the scales. This is the best he's looked in quite some time. I believe he's only 34 or 35 years of age. Dariush, we know, great grappling, submission threat, patient. He's able to pace himself at times, but then he can also get thrown into, it's almost like he's thrown into a dryer in the laundry room, and he can get sucked into firefights. He can get sucked into firefights. Look at the Benny Dariush fight, and he's able to hit the target when he's exhausted. There have been other fights. When he fought Hot Sauce, that was another fight where that was a dangerous fight. He's leaving his chin on a platter. He's landing spinning attacks. And Arman Tsarukyan's a hothead. He's someone who is going to go for it. It's almost like he throws game plans out the window, and he relies on his ferociousness and his physicality. Tsarukyan, great wrestling. It's interesting. I remember him in an interview talking about how his first sport was ice hockey. Arman Tsarukyan didn't get into mixed martial arts later in life, and great wrestling base. Also, Tsarukyan, very short for the division. Dariush has a massive size advantage here. Interesting spot. Tsarukyan, though, was able to hold his own against Islam Makhachev in his UFC debut. And I like the Tsarukyan side. I don't like the minus 298 number. I'll say that. I think that if you got in on Tsarukyan at minus 105 or plus 100 or even minus 180, if you got in around those numbers, you're in a much better spot here. And if you did want to ARB, there's an opportunity to do that. But the gas tank of Tsarukyan, we've seen him go 5 hard rounds. We've seen him in there against Gamrot and others. Now, Dariush, we know he can push a pace for 3 rounds. We've never seen him go 5. Tsarukyan, though, gets tired, and he throws that leg kick. He pounds away, and he'll throw body kicks, and he's very explosive. I think that explosiveness is going to be a problem for Dariush here. Now, he may use that against Tsarukyan and land reactive takedowns in this matchup. So Dariush, I think that Dariush is live here. That being said, Tsarukyan has more paths to victory and has, as at 27 or so years of age, just want to make sure I'm correct here. Yeah, 27 years of age, 20-3 overall record. We've seen when Tsarukyan is tested, he will fight hard for your money. And I think that Tsarukyan won that Gamrot fight. So this fight may end up hitting the scorecards, and this may be potentially one of those fights where there may be some suspect judging here, but I also believe that both fighters here have the potential to finish. I don't trust Dariush the deeper the fight goes, though. I think that this is Tsarukyan's time to come out and shine. I'll be picking Arman Tsarukyan, and I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. This has been a fabulous fight morning breakdown show with everybody, and I trying to get this done in under 35 minutes. Remember to go get what's yours. Have a phenomenal rest of your day, and let's do this, my friends. Let's do this. One fight at a time. You got this. Let's go. Have a great day, my brothers. Have a fantastic fight day.